the great culinary conundrum, stock versus broth. Many people use the terms stock and broth interchangeably, which is understandable. Both involve simmering ingredients in water to extract flavor and can form the base for soups, stews, and sauces. However, there are some key differences between these two culinary staples. Understanding these differences can elevate your cooking, allowing you to make informed decisions about which liquid to use in a dish. Let's break down the confusion and explore the unique characteristics of stock and broth. Bones, broth, and beyond, unveiling the differences. The most significant difference between stock and broth lies in their primary ingredients. Stock is all about bones, which are either roasted or simmered for an extended period to extract collagen and gelatin. These proteins give stock its rich body and silky mouthfeel. Broth, on the other hand, focuses on meat or vegetables, simmered to release their flavors. The presence of bones in stock not only contributes to its texture, but also imparts a deeper, more savory flavor, making stock ideal for dishes where a robust base is desired, like hearty soups, stews, and sauces. Broth, with its lighter flavor profile, is often preferred for applications where a subtler taste is desired, such as in soups, risottos, and even as a cooking liquid for grains. The distinction between stock and broth is not always clear-cut. Some recipes might use a combination of bones and meat for a more complex flavor profile. Additionally, commercial preparations of stock and broth might not always adhere to traditional definitions, which further adds to the confusion. However, understanding the basic principles of their preparation can guide you in making informed choices in the kitchen. Flavor factors: seasoning, simmering, and savory notes. Another key difference between stock and broth lies in their seasoning. Stock is typically made without any salt or seasonings, allowing for greater flexibility in its application. It can be seasoned later according to the specific needs of a dish. Broth, however, is often seasoned with salt, herbs, and spices during the cooking process. The extended simmering time of stock, often several hours, allows for a more intense extraction of flavor from the bones, resulting in a richer, more complex taste. Broth, with its shorter cooking time, typically has a lighter, more delicate flavor. The choice of whether to use stock or broth depends largely on the desired flavor profile of the dish. For a hearty, savory base, stock is the way to go. For a lighter, more nuanced flavor, broth is the better option. Understanding these subtle differences in flavor can make a big difference in the overall taste of your cooking. Now that we've explored the differences between stock and broth, let's discuss their practical applications in the kitchen. Stock, with its robust flavor and silky texture, is an excellent choice for dishes that require a strong base. Think of hearty stews, flavorful sauces, and rich gravies. Its unseasoned nature allows you to control the final seasoning of the dish, making it a versatile ingredient. Broth, on the other hand, shines in recipes where a lighter touch is desired. Its delicate flavor enhances without overpowering, making it perfect for soups, risottos, and even as a cooking liquid for grains. The inherent seasoning in broth can add a depth of flavor to these dishes without the need for additional salt or spices. Choosing between stock and broth ultimately depends on your personal preference and the specific requirements of the recipe. Don't be afraid to experiment and see what works best for your palate. The question of whether you can substitute stock for broth, or vice versa, often arises. While both liquids share some similarities, their distinct characteristics mean that substituting one for the other can impact the final dish. Substituting broth for stock in a recipe that calls for a robust base, like a stew, might result in a less flavorful outcome. The lack of gelatin from bones in broth won't provide the same richness and depth. However, using stock in place of broth in a recipe like risotto might make the dish overly rich or salty, especially if the stock is already seasoned. If a substitution is unavoidable, consider adjusting the seasoning accordingly. When using broth in place of stock, you may need to add additional seasonings to achieve the desired depth of flavor. Conversely, if using stock in place of broth, you might want to hold back on the salt and adjust other seasonings to avoid an overly salty or heavy taste. Making your own broth at home is easier than you might think. It's a great way to use up leftover chicken bones or vegetable scraps, reducing food waste and maximizing flavor. Here's a simple recipe to get you started. In a large pot, Combine leftover chicken bones, a chopped onion, a couple of carrots, and a few stalks of celery. Cover the ingredients with water, ensuring the water level is a couple of inches above the bones and vegetables. Bring the mixture to a boil, then reduce heat and simmer for at least an hour, or longer for a more intense flavor. Strain the broth through a fine mesh sieve, discarding the solids. This basic recipe serves as a delicious base for soups, sauces, or even enjoyed on its own as a comforting and flavorful drink. Remember, cooking is about experimentation and finding what tastes best to you. Don't be afraid to try different combinations of ingredients and seasonings to create your own signature broths and stocks.